Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. You're still on FinWeek Money Matters. South African consumers are spoiled for choice when it comes to video on demand services. The MTN becoming the latest to officially launch its front row offering this week. However, the existing services have failed to attract the expected millions of subscribers. And joining us to discuss the options that are available for consumers and why it hasn't quite taken up here, I've got Larry Claassen. He's a freelance journalist and he joins us from our Cape Town studios. Jan Vermeulen, he's a senior journalist at My Broadband, and Taryn Ullman, she's the head of marketing at VD. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. But Larry, let me start with you. Video on demand, that isn't something that I was always familiar with. Maybe I have used it, but I don't know that I am. What is it exactly?
Well, depending on what kind of service you want, the definition varies. You can think of it as you can offer a streaming service like we've seen like what they have in the States, where you just watch the video and it plays as if it's on your video recorder from another location, or you can download it. Yeah, that's basically what video on demand is.
Jan, he spoke about streaming, and whenever I try to get a video on the internet, it's buffering and it's always so slow. Is that one of the reasons why it hasn't really picked up? And really, hasn't it picked up?
I would say that it really hasn't picked up, but we'll hear from Vidya in a second. Yeah, that can certainly be one of the big reasons it hasn't taken off, is broadband in South Africa just isn't at the same level as more developed markets where video on demand has taken off tremendously. So a big player in this market for those out there who need a frame of reference is Netflix. And Netflix is probably the biggest name out there, but YouTube is a good example of video on demand because it's video that you watch when you want on demand.
So how are you dealing with the issue of having very, very slow broadband or internet reaction when you're trying to click on something? Is that not something that you're worried about? How are you circumventing this?
I think we've got a couple of approaches. Firstly, the way our technology back end works is that it's a streaming service, it isn't a download service. So to prevent the buffering, we are able to read your device, your speed of your line coming in, and provide you with the best image, or serve you the best image possible that suits your setup. So we're not going to give you a ridiculously high HD image if you are on a very basic phone with a 2 meg line. And I think that's the one side from the technology point of view. The beauty of streaming versus downloading is exactly that. It streams in from servers that come internationally. We have our servers placed internationally, and literally it's like a window that opens up, allows you to view what's passing your stream and closes again. And depending on your line speed, it allows you to have a better or a worse experience. So bandwidth is certainly important, but you know, even on relatively low lines, 2-3 megs, you can actually have a good viewing experience.
Larry, let me come back to you in Cape Town. We have been speaking about the different options, but MTN just launched one of their new video on demand products. What else is available to the consumer there? And in terms of costs, South Africa is still quite expensive. So are you able just to give us an indication of how much this would cost us?
There's the Altec Node. I think that goes for about just short of 300 Rand a month. But you pay separately for different movies. So it could be from 15 Rand to 25 Rand for a new movie. There's DSTV's box office. I think they charge something like 27 Rand a movie. And there's Vidi that comes in about just under 150 Rand a month. But these prices don't include whether your service needs a set-top box or not. Altec needs a set-top box. DSTV varies. You can play it via your PVR, or you can play it straight via your online. MTN, I don't think you need a set-top box for that.
What's the most practical solution here, just for a normal individual? You've got to set up all these things. I mean, what if I just want to watch a movie and I want to do it on my iPad? What's the easiest solution for me?
Well, that depends on what you're comfortable with. So yeah, if you've got an iPad and you don't want to have to install another decoder, that's the set-top box that Larry was referring to. So Altec Node works with, they hate me calling it a decoder, but that's the best frame of reference. It looks like a decoder with DSTV. And if you don't have the money or the inclination to install another one of those, then your best bet is to go streaming. And there are quite a couple of options in South Africa that just let you rent a movie online and stream it straight to a mobile device. So Vidi is one, MTN Front Row is another, and DSTV Box Office is one. And you don't actually have to be a subscriber with either of these services, to the best of my knowledge, to make use of their what they call transactional video on demand offering. You've got two different types of video on demand. You've got subscription video on demand and transactional. And in South Africa, the guys are usually doing both. DSTV is an exception that do only transactional, but then like an international player like Netflix only does subscription. So if you just want to rent a movie, you can download one of these apps, you can rent it that way, and you can even use Apple's own service. iTunes Movies has actually launched in South Africa, and so you can rent movies that way. So as you correctly said in the beginning of the segment, there are a lot of choices available to South Africa, to South Africans, but it's not Netflix. And that's the big name that a lot of people want to see come to South Africa.
I want to talk about Netflix in a bit, but you mentioned something important, that was subscribers. Yes. Is this something that you need to be cognizant of? I mean, subscriber numbers, is that data available in South Africa? And what are you doing to attract them?
Completely. Our service is actually the one service that offers both a subscription and transactional video on demand option, where you don't need to be a subscriber to access the transactional element. So just to explain that a little bit more, the transactional, similar to, we all know Box Office as a good example, is where you get the latest blockbusters hot off the big screen, come out onto Box Office within sort of 3 months from release, and you get to watch it. That is TVOD, or transactional video on demand, and we have that offer, and you can literally, it's an a la carte service. You read the menu, you say, I would like to watch that, and you watch it. You don't need to be a subscriber to do that. A subscription option, you pay on Vidi, it's 149 Rand, and then you have access to an entire library of thousands of hours of content, most of which comes from a variety of TV series, which we almost have like as a box set option. So it's all 6 seasons of Breaking Bad, all 8 seasons of Brothers and Sisters, and so forth. And then a whole lot of movies, which are older movies. They come more out of a library catalog, and you can watch what you want as many times as you want within that month that you're a subscriber. So our business does work on both, but our subscriber side of things is definitely where our focus is at the moment, and what we need to push to then upsell on the transactional side.
Larry, back to you in Cape Town. I'm probably quite old school. I still like my DVDs, and I do go to a DVD store. Does this mean this is the end of it? From your analysis, from what you've seen, people will never go into a DVD store again and purchase one, or I don't know, what's your reading on this?
I still think people are going to go to DVD stores for a while, but when it comes to downloading, I think it's going to become a way of life for people. I just see a scenario where the more bandwidth we have and the lower cost, the more prevalent it will become.
Jan, how far are we in terms of, I know you work from My Broadband, so I'm just making the assumption that you are up to date when it comes to spectrum and all things broadband related. South Africa, are we making strides here?
So very interesting things happening in South Africa in terms of fiber broadband, where the South African consumer has effectively taken it upon themselves to get fiber into their suburbs. So these are affluent suburbs, make no mistake, this is where these services will launch first, is where there's a lot of money. But yeah, we're seeing leafy suburbs like Parkview, Parkhurst, and surrounding areas, and leafy suburbs in Cape Town going, you know what, we'll go out on tender, and we'll say, anybody who wants to roll out fiber, we can offer you this many subscribers in our neighborhood, we're willing to pay this much, come and show us what you've got. And networks are being rolled out in these areas, and these fiber networks promise far better broadband than we've been used to from fixed line services like Telkom's ADSL, and bring much needed competition to the fixed line market in South Africa. And those types of services certainly make HD streaming far more practical. So we're definitely seeing strides being made in South Africa's broadband space, which then unlocks services like video on demand, makes it possible for them to reach a user that can actually use the service the way it was intended, rather than us trying to shoehorn something onto a broadband system that's maybe not really built to handle this kind of demand.
Unfortunately, we are out of time, but we will try and continue this conversation. But thank you so much to my guest, Larry Claassen, a freelance journalist who joined us from our Cape Town studios, Jan Vermeulen, senior journalist at My Broadband, and Taryn Ullman, head of marketing at Vidi.